Hello everyone, welcome to Dr. Anna's Physio. So today I'm going to start with a brief introduction on the circulatory system. We're going to talk about the human heart, the structure, the major parts. So circulatory system consists of, it includes the heart and the blood vessels. The heart, the human heart, weighs about 300 grams and is situated in the mediastinum. Mediastinum is a central portion, the middle part of the thoracic cavity. So the heart is present behind the sternum in the mediastinum. Now the human heart can be divided into 4 chambers. It has 2 atria and 2 ventricles. So the atrias are the upper chambers. You have the right atria and the left atria, and you have the right ventricle and the left ventricle on the lower sides. The right atrium receives blood from, that is, the gas exchange takes place at the level of the capillaries. The capillaries combine to form small veins or venules. Venules combine to form large veins, and eventually large veins combine to form the largest vein, superior vena cava and inferior vena cava. So the venous blood, that is the blood containing deoxygenated blood, because at the level of capillaries, what happens? Oxygen is taken up by the tissues and carbon dioxide or the waste products are given back or taken back into the capillaries, and via the veins, the deoxygenated blood returns to the right atrium. And because the right side of the heart has deoxygenated blood, or we say it in layman's way, impure blood, okay, or blood rich in carbon dioxide and poor in oxygen, this side I have changed it into blue color. Okay, now through the superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava, the deoxygenated blood from all the veins of our body returns to the right atrium. Now there is a separation between the right atrium and the left atrium. You can see this is the interatrial septum. The separation between right ventricle and left ventricle is interventricular septum or sulcus. Now the right atrium receives deoxygenated blood from the veins. Now the atrium is like booster pumps, okay? Its main function is to pump the blood it receives into the next chamber, the chamber below, the ventricle. So from the right atrium, the deoxygenated blood moves to the right ventricle. From the right ventricle, through the pulmonary artery or the pulmonary trunk, also known as the pulmonary artery, it goes to the lungs. And why does it go to the lung? At the level of lungs, there is another tissue exchange taking place. This time, the blood is purified or oxygenated. That is, the air we breathe in the lungs at the level of alveoli and capillaries. From the alveoli, oxygen enters the blood and carbon dioxide is returned to the alveoli, which we exhale out. So once the blood is oxygenated, that is, it is rich in oxygen now, the pure blood or the oxygenated blood will return to the left atrium via pulmonary veins. So you have 4 pulmonary veins which drain into the left atria. So one thing you would have noted is, generally we say the veins carry deoxygenated blood and the arteries carry oxygenated blood. An exception, okay, an exception is pulmonary artery is the only artery which carries deoxygenated blood, and pulmonary vein is the only vein after birth in a living being that carries oxygenated blood. Now the left atrium receives the oxygenated blood. Just like the right atrium, it is a booster pump. It ejects blood into the left ventricle. From the left ventricle, through the aorta, the largest artery, now blood goes into the systemic circulation. So you would have noticed blood in the right side, from the right side of the heart, went to the lungs, okay, and therefore this circulation is called pulmonary circulation. Whereas the blood from the left side of the heart goes from the aorta to different parts of the body, to different systems. So this circulation is called systemic circulation. Now there is just as I mentioned, there is a septum between right and left atria and right and left ventricles. Between right atria and the right ventricle, you have a valve. So on the right side, you have a tricuspid valve. Okay, so what is the purpose of a valve? It regulates the flow of blood. It opens when blood enters the right ventricle. When the filling is over, it closes. So the valve between the right atrium and the right ventricle is called the tricuspid valve because it has 3 cusps. The valve between the left atrium and the left ventricle through which blood passes is called the bicuspid valve because it has 2 cusps, or it is also known as the mitral valve. So you have the tricuspid valve between the right atrium and the right ventricle, and the bicuspid or mitral valve between the left atrium and the left ventricle. So these are the atrioventricular valves, the valves between the atria and the ventricles. Now similarly, you also have valves between the right ventricle and the pulmonary artery. This valve, as it goes into the pulmonary artery, this is known as the pulmonary valve, and the valve between the left ventricle and the aorta, going on the vessel, this is known as the aortic valve. The pulmonary valve and the aortic valve, they are called as the semilunar valves. That is all for today. In the next class, we will move on to further dynamics of circulatory system. Thank you. Have a good day.